Hi folks, welcome back to the Horde. So it's somewhere around 4:20 and today is the 30th. I think you guys can see that. Saturday, 82 degrees, feels warmer because the humidity's up there. 27.8 degrees Celsius, 57% humidity. So yeah, it's a damp day outside. What am I up to today? I had to cut the grass, which took a while because I used the John Deere again because I'm an idiot and I haven't serviced the Kubota yet. So instead of cutting grass 60 inches at a time, I'm cutting it 38 inches at a time. So it takes approximately 1/3, well, probably takes twice as long because of all the extra stripes you have to make. So yeah, I finished cutting the grass, and before I go in and shower up and get ready to relax, I figured I'd spend a few minutes with Stoney's bike. Now, here, let me start it up for you. Now, the story on this rig is, it appears as if it came from New Hampshire. And I started it up, drove it around back, and it was a little cranky. It didn't seem to be getting gas. So I pulled the carb off quick and cleaned it up. Put it back on. I was going to put the gas tank back on, but I turned the gas on and nothing was coming out. So I noted that the gas tank, that's the gas tank for it right there, had a little bit of, how does one say, crap in it. And if you look in there, see how that's plugged up. So, and even after I took this off, I don't know if you guys are familiar with those gas tanks. This kind of, picture my finger, but it's made out of plastic, and it's got mesh all over the place, held up by plastic, kind of a plastic skeleton with mesh on it. Well, obviously that's not healthy. There's a little bit of rust in the tank. It's not that bad, but enough that it's plugging up filters. So anyway, I took the tank off. I always like to get down to basics to figure out what's going on with stuff. So I took the tank off and put a little tank on it. He replaced the carburetor. That's a brand new carburetor, but this bike don't like this carburetor. It's running like, I fired up one of the other bikes, and it didn't like the carburetor either. It was this one. And then I swapped it out again, and it was much happier. I put a video up about a carb with a vacuum leak. That's what I think this carb's problem is. I mean, the bike's fussy with it, so I'll just jam another carb on there in a minute. What I want to do is, I have this thing running on its OEM ignition. I did disconnect, you can see those two yellow wires here. Right, these two yellow wires run the 12-volt system, and I always disconnect them when I'm not using it. These other wires, I mean, one is for reverse and, you know, probably stop and so forth like that. But the only two wires you need, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but you got to make sure that red and black is hooked up. It's red and black. I hope you guys could see that. Got to make sure red and black's hooked up because that's where the power from your stator goes to your CDI and coil. Without power, you got no spark. And green is ground. Never hurts to have ground. So, anyway, let me fire this up for you. And once again, let me warn you in advance that the carburetor is a little cranky. So I'm gonna, use starting fluid. So that's running on the OEM ignition system. And I did start it, and you could see the seats there. I rode it around a little bit. It's a little quirky. Once again, I'm going to change the carburetor at X. It's doing that vacuum leak thing. You put a brand new one on, but sometimes I've been told that some people have trouble with the brand new ones straight from the factory. And this will be the second one that I've had that's been a little quirky from the factory. But the last one that was a little quirky from the factory ran like crap on this thing. But when I put it on the TRX 200, she ran beautifully. So I don't know. Maybe the bikes are a little fussy or about having a vacuum leak or not. The other thing I wanted to do, so anyway, you guys could see Stoney's bike runs, and it's running on its OEM ignition. I was trying to put together an ignition system without having to put a 12 volt power source. I wanted to use the stator power source. So what I did is I got this is just a typical dirt bike. As a matter of fact, this is exactly the ignition system from the Speed Defies Gravity dirt bike. I mean, exactly. It's the one I took off of here. And if you take a quick look at it, the wiring diagram, you know, you got green for ground. Black and white is how you turn it off. Black and red is the stator. Black and yellow powers the coil, which powers the spark plug. And the CDI pickup is blue and white. Okay, so and when you're troubleshooting an ignition system, I don't care if it's for this guy or whatever you're looking at it, you got to look at it as if your CDI is the center of the universe. And if you look at it that way, when you unplug the CDI, and I mean just a few quick measurements, if you go from ground to where your stator would be, you should see about 200 ohms, 250, somewhere around between 200 and 300 ohms. When you look at the black and yellow, right there, you'll see almost a short, you know, like 0.1, 0.2, less than 0.5 ohms. Typically between ground and, or in this case you have to hook to the green wire and the blue and white wire, you'll see about 30 ohms. Obviously, if you're probing the socket between green and ground, you should see a dead short. And the black, white and black, if you want the thing to run, you should see an open circuit. If you see a short, that means your on and off switch is either turned off or it's shorted out. So if you look at the world from the point of view of the CDI, everything's easy. So what I did when I made this wire harness, I started looking at everything from the point of view of the CDI. So black and red wire, right? I'm going to go plug that in the stator. Ground, right? I'm going to go hook this to one of the fins on the case. This ground here, right? There's a ground that comes off the motor, the stator, so I'm going to plug in there. This ground and this blue and white wire, right? These two, I'm going to hook right up there, right? And the black and yellow and the ground's already hooked to the coil. So I basically have to go over there and hook up, you know, 4 or 5 wires, right? And I have an ignition system ready to go, and it'll be stator powered. This is an AC powered ignition system, right? Take us 2 seconds. I'll go over there and hook that up. Take note, this, right? CDI is a lot bigger than this CDI. The small CDIs do not have an advance built in. They're counting on the motor to provide the advance. the bigger CDIs are looking to have the motors have no advance, and motors that have no advance be like the 250s. And once again, it appears as if some of the dirt bikes do and some of them don't have advance. I put the Lifrin ignition system on this, and I don't recall off the top of my head how big the CDI unit was on this, so I don't recall if this has an advance or not. Why do I mention that? Because you can buy these smaller ignition systems, the ones for I mean, when you look them up, it typically says something like 110cc quad ignition system, something along those lines. And this is one of those China ignition. Everything here is China. By the way, the wire harness on eBay, pit bike wire harness, pit bike coil. Pit bike wire harness is somewhere around $5. Pit bike coil is somewhere $10-11. And these CDIs, which are ATV 110cc CDIs. And once again, you want them small. When you look at the picture, make sure they're little guys like this. Make sure they got the white plug. They're typically somewhere around $8, $9. So let's pretend we're going to make this go. Let me just put the camera here, and I'm going to say what I'm doing as I'm doing it. You want to hook up the spark plug? I'm hooking up the black and red. That's the stator. This one has a ground, so I'm going to hook it up. It never hurts to hook up a ground. Right. This is the alligator clip. I'm hooking it to the side of the case. Make sure you have good contact, guys. Now, the other blue and white in ground, I'm hooking up to the pulse generator. Okay, I think I got it all hooked up. How's that for easy? While I was doing this, I also went through the trouble. This is a standard CDI unit. One that comes with this, or not with this, with the 200 or 185. This is a 185 CDI unit. And these are all the China ones. Right, and there's a China one in it. Every one of these works. So these four work, including the OEM, which is good. And the China one works. This one, you can see it's bigger and it's got the round plug. Even though it does not have a built-in advance, it's bigger because of reverse lockouts and a few other things, a few other safety decisions it's making. So I have a tendency to stick with the square guys, right? Though if one had a wire to where a round one goes, one could do that, but you lose little things like the safety interlocks. They'll be gone. Anyway, so this is getting to be long. We're up to a 15-minute video. So what I showed you guys today, two things. First of all, obviously Stoney bikes runs. I'm going to throw a different carburetor on it, make it run better. But I've also showed you that for like 25 bucks, right, you could build your own little CDI box and everything could work. Remember, these bigger guys, from a dirt bike point of view, that means they have an advance built in and they won't work for you. The big ones with the square plug, let's go with it that way. The round ones that are a little bit bigger, they have safety stuff built in. They don't necessarily have an advance built in, but they got some safety stuff built in. So you can make a decision with what you want to do. If I'm wiring a bike, I like to make it as simple as possible. And how much simpler could you get than putting on a spark plug wire, right? This is already hooked up, right? Hooking up the black and red. Make sure your black and white's floating, not touching the case. If you short it to the case, you turn the motor off. Alligator clip on green. How's that for easy? And all I have to do is hook up green for ground and the blue and white. And you can see I got it started, right? That's simple. Folks, I want to thank you all for watching and commenting and subscribing. Remember to keep your feet down, keep your head up, and if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. If we could keep these things running, right, the longer we could keep these things running, the better. So at this point, I've kind of showed you guys the 12-volt unit, which has an advance, which is good for all the 250 stuff, or it'll even work on that guy. So the 12-volt stuff with the advance I showed you, and now I've showed you the stator-driven, the AC stuff that has no advance, but you do need a functional stator. It won't work if you don't have a stator. So sometimes you need a stator, sometimes you don't. Okay, folks, bye now. Remember to keep your feet down, keep your head up, and get out there and enjoy all your days. Thanks for watching and commenting and subscribing. Bye now.